we can't see behind the scenes. There's some very real possibilities for logic behind this. Like maybe famous Grammys performer Her is incredibly litigious, and maybe she successfully won some lawsuits against other candy bar makers. There's a chance. Listen, they might be so galaxy brain. Her feels too specific. The overarching concept of might be really what they want to address. I will say though, like these things work. Like it is honestly playing with packaging and just like it always works. Honestly, like more and more brands should be doing this, but yeah, maybe giving a little more thought into how they actually design it.
Welcome to Punchy by Rival, where we take the gloves off to share the hard-hitting realities of the challenger marketing world. Each week, we'll break down the buzz and cut through the BS of the top stories and trends to tell you what you really need to know and do differently to grow your brand and career. All right. We are live. Let me make sure I get the overlay up there this time. I cannot believe that I am here right now. I was literally on the ground in Amsterdam an hour ago. And Jenna, Marcus, I emailed you as well, but as Jenna and Dubose know from my Slack, there was like a minute by minute. I can't believe it. Like I literally got here. I landed half an hour ago at London City Airport. It's crazy. It took me less time to commute from Amsterdam than it did from my house in London. It's nuts. But the Punchy gods were with us. So we are here for episode 3. Jenna, how are you doing in the booth behind me at WeWork right now?
I'm doing really great. Enjoying my product placement of Punchy.
I'm sure they're listening. I'm sure that the is listening to this. And we want you to sponsor the show. It's actually been an idea that we've had for a while. And so we're doing some subtle product placement now to show you the value of sponsoring the show. But I will be reaching out to see if we can broker a deal. And Dubose, how are you doing? I know that you are bearing all the elements of southern Italy right now. The scorching sun, the shitty Wi-Fi, and the old man playing accordion nonstop outside your Airbnb. How's all that going for you?
It's not bad. It's not bad. He's stopped playing accordion, and now there's someone selling vegetables. I can't confirm or deny if it's the same person, but they're very busy, so it's good.
What vegetables? What's in season?
I'm not sure. I haven't leaned over yet. I don't want to kind of engage, but it sounds like there's lots, and there's a megaphone. So this is not a spur of the moment thing.
And last but not least, Marcus, like fantastic Krzastek. How you doing, man?
Doing really, really well. So happy to be here.
So I have to know, do people still call you Poe, or was that just an old Vayner thing?
It is a dying trend. It it's funny. It still pops up every once in a while. That being said, like now it's at the point where like when it does happen, there's like a little like beat that I have to take and be like, oh, that's right, never mind. Yeah, but it is a little bit on its way out. Which, by the way, honestly, I would like to have it come back. We're all busy. I can't be saying Marcus. One syllable is really all we need.
Exactly. I mean, you got to find that efficiency where you can, right? Mm-hmm. All right, Marcus, straight off the bat, 2 points for bringing me back to old Vayner times. All right, let's get into the show. So we got 3 articles and we got a couple good things in the grab bag that I really want to get to. And I realized in the last episode, I did not actually explain what the grab bag is. So the grab bag is fun stuff going on that we want to talk about if we get through the real headlines and the meat of the episode each week. So we got a couple things that we'll get to, hopefully. But the 3 articles that we're going to cover. So the first is a report out of the MediaLeader.com that ad fraud costs have surged 21% to 120 billion USD. That may or may not actually be true, but Jenna's going to elaborate on that for us in a second. The second article is about how Kim Kardashian has now added chief taste consultant for Beyond Meat to her ever-expanding resume. And then lastly, we're going to talk about Facebook and how they're developing a privacy-safe ad product as it tries to save its advertising business. That's an article from Business Insider. So we're going to start with the article out of Media Leader about ad fraud. So ad fraud is forecasted, again, may or may not be forecasted. Jenna's going to tell us whether or not this is a real article and the truth. Ad fraud is forecasted to cost U.S. marketers 120 billion USD this year, a 21% year-on-year increase on 2021. Common ad fraud tactics such as app install farms, click injection are increasing at sharper rates than they have in the past. Jenna, is this a real article?
This is not a real article. This has been retracted and has come along with a healthy dose of professional LinkedIn drama. And I think that LinkedIn drama is everybody's favorite flavor of drama.
That's
is it
the
not?
real story here. I got to talk
The
to our
real
newsroom
story.
here at Rival, though. See if we can get our facts correct.
The real story, like I said, was the LinkedIn drama. Okay, so so I saw this article, like it was published by the Media Leader, and I went, "What the fuck?" Because oh my god, that's so much. That would essentially mean that something I think like between 40% of 40 and 60% of the total U.S. ad market constitutes fraud. So I went, "Oh my god, is this a real thing?" And then it turned out that many other people had the same reaction that I did, and they went, "Oh my God, is this a real thing?" Because previously, the ANA and a lot of other brand safety organizations that they're affiliated with have said that actually ad fraud constitutes 1% of the total value of the ad market and a much lower number. And then it turned out that the ANA had not sourced this article or had not sourced this number at all. That Media Leader had just put this out. Hadn't sourced it at all, and then had to retract it later after being called out multiple times on this, that this contradicts kind of their own methodology and a few other things. So the drama part of this aside, which did involve specific naming, shaming, and finger pointing on LinkedIn from several members of the Media Leader, and then other people like this guy, Augustin Fu, who does FooAnalytics.com and a few other things. That was really enjoyable to watch. But actually, I think the big takeaway from this is, does anybody know how much ad fraud is actually worth? Like, how are we determining these things? No one really seems to know. And it's a lot of guesswork. So I think it was more kind of the what's going on with ad fraud. Who knows?
It's crazy. I mean,
no one knows.
Marketing drama getting played out on LinkedIn is one of the most entertaining things that happens. But also, I feel like every once in a while, there's an article like this that pops up about ad fraud, and people kind of get riled up about it, and then it kind of fades away into the background. But you're totally right. Like, so much of this industry, the paid side, the digital side, is built on, like, we don't even know what a lot of it is doing, right? Dubose, you got thoughts on this?
I think there's a difference between not knowing what it's doing and it being flat out fraud. Like, I think it's back to the idea, what's the old saying? It's like, half my money is working, I don't know what half. If half my money was completely fraud, that would be a slightly different quote. And I think the trick here is when you look at this as an industry, the fact that so many people looked at that and took it as gospel on LinkedIn is really, really worrying. I think back to the idea that every few years there's an article about levels of ad fraud, and we kind of hand wring and then we move on. The fact that it could be that high and there would still just be hand wringing and not kind of a massive call for change is an interesting one. I think there's an acceptance that there needs to be fraud we need to eliminate, but I think there's a level of just apathy towards it that's really, really surprising.
So Marcus, being at VaynerMedia for, is it 12 years now? 13 years? How long has
13,
it been?
13 as like a couple weeks ago.
Wow, 13 years. That's crazy, man. But way back in the day, a lot of what we did was just social media. And now, of course, Vayner and VaynerX is even more than a full service agency at this point. But knowing you, knowing Gary, of course, a lot of it is going to be still heavily focused on social and digital. So, either specific to this article and this conversation, or more generally, when you think and talk to clients and work with clients about digital, how do you think about ad fraud with the work that you do?
Yeah, I mean, I think what Dubose called out was a really interesting point, which is that, like, I think you can easily get caught in the variety of headlines around ad fraud. It's different numbers every month. There's a different article around, like, the current state of it. In transparency, like, frankly, it's a big reason why a lot of our focus has been trying to, as much as possible, correlate like actual business results with the things that we're doing, and trying to isolate out different media tactics against what's actually happening within the business. Because when you get caught up in one media metric versus the other media metric, you can find yourself in this kind of like gray area where you actually are detached from what's actually happening. But if you're actually looking at what's happening within the business, the concept of 25% versus 32% ad fraud becomes far less interesting. Because whether or not it's 32 or 25, if you're getting the results that you need to see out of the medium, that's ultimately what matters.
Cool. So talking of legitimate business results, Marcus, I'm gonna stay on you for this one.
Yeah.
Beyond Meat has hired Kim Kardashian to promote its plant-based meat substitutes. The company will give her the Chief Taste Consultant title and offer coupons and recipes through an email newsletter. How are you feeling about this one? Thumbs up, thumbs down on Beyond Meat hiring Kim Kardashian?
Yeah, it's a funny one. It's a classic move, right, for marketers to go to like the absolute top tier of influencer to do this. It doesn't mean it can't be impactful. Like I don't think it's just like completely black and white. Like these types of deals are always bad. They are almost exclusively not the most effective use of your money. However, you're paying a premium for Kim. I think everyone here knows that like Kim and that top like 5% of like influencer marketers, like they're doing tons of deals. You certainly are going to get benefit of like the awareness that you browse out, but like historically, I know from what we've seen, if you're willing to put in a little bit of time and effort, the like mid to long tail of folks that still have real reach and real cultural influence, but aren't necessarily the people with 20 million followers is something that we think is actually far more impactful. So like as an example, we've done some stuff with DraftKings and Bojangles in the States, where we've been able to pair up with like rising artists who aren't necessarily like immediately beginning. They're artists that have like actual followings. But we're able to essentially pair them with brands, create custom songs and music videos because they're not so big that they won't do something like really immersive. And the people that follow them actually really care. Fresco Trey, one of the rappers who work with the DraftKings, literally made a song called DraftKings, and his fans are like singing along DraftKings. I bet 100 on myself, like in a concert, because it's like genuinely like they're like touched. You know what I mean? That like this guy's like getting a deal, and he's actually got someone supporting him. And like, listen, if you go on TikTok right now, any major TikToker that you follow, that you've seen kind of come up, you followed them when they were getting like 1,000 likes. You follow them now, they get 10,000, 15,000. Like, it means something different when you see them actually get a little like product placement in it. It's like, okay, cool. Like they're finally making it. So, again, they will definitely get awareness from the Kim stuff. She's not going to do much more than like what she's already doing. And it's one of those things that like, they just could have probably spent it a little bit better.
Yeah. 5 points. That was a very solid answer. That was a 5-point answer. Jenna, I know you have thoughts on influencer marketing. Sorry to cut you off, Dubose. Why don't we go to you first?
I have strong feelings about this. Now, I think there's two interesting things about this story. The first being, I'm going to naturally assume that CTO from now on means Chief Taste Officer until someone explicitly tells me otherwise in meetings, which I think is just a better way to go through life.
Dubose, do you want to be the Chief Taste Officer of Rival? The position's open.
I don't think I have the resume for that. I'm just going to be honest.
Well, if you want to submit your application to the board, we will consider it.
And that it's stuff like that is why we reassure people we're a real company. And then I think the second thing here that I think is really interesting is just the intent of getting someone like Kim Kardashian. Because I'm not up on keeping up with I haven't kept up with the Kardashians, but like she's not a vegan, right? So like I think there is something interesting about getting non-vegan, non-vegetarians to flog Beyond Meat. And it speaks about where the sector is going, right? Like my favorite activation of all time around meat substitutes was when Brewdog in the UK did a half and half burger. So half actual beef and half fake beef in the same burger. Because if the goal is just to get people to eat less meat, it doesn't have to be a binary thing. And I think, something like this is a smart way to extend out and extend the reach of the category. And I think when you look at meat substitutes, it's going to be the kind of thing that has to happen. Someone who doesn't really have a link with vegetarianism in most ways, I'd assume, talking about Beyond Meat is an interesting way to expand it.
Can I just ask, how long is your list of favorite meat alternative marketing activations? If that's your favorite one.
We do not have enough time to go through all of these, but I will say, like, corner meat a party, I can walk through them.
Jenna.
I was gonna say like this in the that's like one of the UK brands like this that they like their this isn't chicken, like they do some really good ones.
It's not
they
bad.
do some good activations. Yeah. But I was gonna say like, okay, so I agree, Dupos, that they should be going after like non-vegans. That is important because that is like kind of like the next place that this is going. But I don't know, like, is this that like are they going after like that shitty vapid people can also like meat alternatives with Kim Kardashian? Is that like they're going after that segment?
I'm pretty sure that was the brief. Yeah.
Well, I like it.
I mean, that's
lowers...
but it is interesting. Like the efficiency is obviously not there. And I think about what we talked about last week with Varo, the challenger bank in the US, and just how much money they've spent on marketing in the first half of this year. And you just can't spend that amount of money while still being incredibly efficient with it. But there is something to the effectiveness in the mainstream. We talk about different media channels as well, TV, and also the equity that brings you, which is part of the Pufferfish Challenger report that we put out a couple months ago. Different media channels, and Kim Kardashian is a media channel for them, give you different equity. So it's not just about the efficiency, it is about the effectiveness as well.
Yeah,
Kim
it's
Kardashian
like
couldn't even get into the Platinum Jubilee. She tried to get into the Platinum Jubilee and she couldn't get in. So I don't know. Like, is she really the most effective? Is she really the top tier now? If you can't get into a royal
She's
party,
gotta
I
be,
don't even
right?
know.
would you have a
She's
royal
gotta be.
family actual program for this? Is that your recommendation?
Why? Yeah. Why not Meghan Markle? Why not Meghan Markle? I feel like.
Why not the queen?
Yeah.
Why not the
Yeah.
queen?
Yeah.
All right. Any last thoughts on this one before I move on?
I think it's interesting when you mention about this, because this isn't chicken. Doesn't sound like a brand. It sounds like a threat. So I think it's a question without an answer. And I really think they should consider rounding that off.
Their visual identity, they have a distinctive visual identity with like the typeface of. I follow them on Instagram. I like them. They do fun stuff on social.
I do think
right.
though, like, to your point around that though, it is like, and this is where the Kim stuff comes into play. It's like, is she really making it okay? Like, the people are hesitant to do this because like it feels weird. Maybe they think people are going to look at them a little differently when they do it, and it's just like, I do sometimes think that like they're kind of not bridging that gap in any way that's effective, and the names sometimes don't help.
All right. 5 points to Marcus, 2 points to Jenna, but I'm giving you 7 points for the first article. I think I forgot to mention that.
Okay,
And
great.
4 points for Dubos, just because it sounds like a nice number. All right, here we go.
The exchange
So
rate.
we're already going into the. All right, let me just do a quick point check. So Marcus has 7. Jenna, you're in the lead with 9. Dubos, it's time for you to win one. Come on, buddy. You got 4 points right now. Last article. Dubose, I'm going to start with you. See if you can get some points back here. Facebook is developing a privacy-safe ad product as it tries to save, a little dramatic, tries to save its advertising business. This is from Business Insider. So Meta Platforms, Facebook, is planning a basic ad product that wouldn't rely on people's information as privacy changes squeeze its ability to collect user data. The product would be measured by basic metrics, including engagement and video views. So obviously this comes in the wake of Apple's changes to Facebook's ad policy, which have caused $12.8 billion hit to Meta's revenue in 2022. Dubose,
Nice.
thoughts on this?
I think in the name alone, we find the commitment to this ad product. I don't think there's been anything named basic that really gets the intent and the thought it needs. If you were to buy a basic airplane ticket, you barely get a seat. You have to fly with things stuffed in your jacket. So I think the equivalent of that, the equivalent of a no carry-on, no checked bags ad product is probably what we're talking about here to start with. I think the intent is fine. I think it shows the idea that shifts in personalization, shifts in the idea of personal data and privacy means they have to adapt. But I think there's a real question on what is the value if they're moving away from access to data as the value. And I think this seems like an interim product versus the final positioning of it, the final value prop that's going to move them away from where they've traditionally sat in the market.
Ooh,
Jenna?
Dubos.
Jenna?
I feel like when we had like the conversation about TikTok, you were all on the side of like, oh, like it's about like attention and it's about like consumer attention. Like the premise behind the basic ad product should still be Meta's platforms, Instagram, like WhatsApp or whatever, like still have consumer attention. Theoretically, and you have advocated for this, theoretically that attention should be enough for it's like, okay, you should be going after that and not the overly intrusive collection of data necessarily. So is it about like data is what makes effectiveness in advertising, or is it about consumer attention?
It's about consumer attention. I just think the point is anything named the basic ad product has yet to be fully formed out of the oven. I just think there's going to be a story around this that's a bit better. I still stand by my intent that I think they're recognizing where the market's going and they're trying to adapt. I just don't think when they brought this to market, they've fully gotten that story together yet.
If only they had someone on staff who could name their ad products.
Call us.
Maybe the new COO will do it. Yeah. I don't know why you have to choose either or. Like, I think that like realistically, it's data and it's attention. And I think also like sometimes when we have these discussions, it can go very quickly to like all one way or all the other, right? It's either like the targeting is incredible or there's no targeting and like these platforms are in trouble. And I think that like there's real incrementality in this in terms of like, hey, is this platform incrementally better, even if it has limited targeting versus other alternatives? And I do think that like, there could be a world in which Facebook has completely basic targeting can still be effective. I think to this point around like, hey, you still have enough eyeballs to make it work. But I think even within a construct of like limited targeting within a Facebook or a TikTok, like there's real value to be had that's incrementally more valuable against other mediums that don't have those targeting options. I would also say, frankly, like I find the biggest gap right now for a lot of these digital platforms less to be on like specifically utilizing like the different targeting options. I think actually the industry's gotten incredibly good at like evolving as those things have changed. And there's a large gap still in terms of like actually understanding how to use creative within those dynamics to actually drive action, capture attention. Like still today, like everyone is assuming that they put out an ad and someone's going to look at it. And it's just not the case. And so like, frankly, as we lose some of like the, like, I would call it like parachute that like some of this like super advanced retargeting has given creative and media teams, for anyone who doesn't actually figure out how to like actually say something that's interesting and drives to a product benefit, it's going to be exposing them pretty quickly.
Any last thoughts on this one? Otherwise, we got 9 minutes to dig into the grab bag. Should we do it? I'm going to change the rules a little bit. You can earn points in the grab bag section now. So we're going to keep going. We've got 9. I gave 2 points to Poe for that, 2 points to Jenna, 3 points to Dubose. So we've got Poe in the lead with, Jenna in the lead with 11, yeah. Poe coming up with 9. And it's a really tight race, actually. Dubose, you've got 7. I think I should start getting, can I give myself points? I want to have a rant or rave at some point. No, I'm going
to I thought this was rigged. I just thought it was rigged for me this time. And now I'm realizing it's not. So that's just the journey I'm on.
It's not over yet, Dubose. All right, here we go. First story. I'm using air quotes for people that are listening and not watching. So from the Fishbowl advertising account, Jenna, you flagged this. This is something I'm also very passionate about. So Hershey's, the candy bar, did some type of activation, and I'm going to share my screen. I don't know how this is going to work with the live recording. Let's see if I can do this. Easiest with 2 monitors. I don't know if this is going to work, but for people that are watching, there you go. You can see it. So Hershey's did an activation about what was this actually about? It's something about, what was this about, Jenna? But either way, the story here is that they highlighted she in the Hershey's bar, which is actually grammatically incorrect with the way that they announced this campaign, which says scan here to learn more and find out how you can celebrate she. And the answer was right there for them. They could have just highlighted her and it would have been grammatically correct. So I don't know if this is interesting to anybody who's not a marketer, but for some reason it bugs me way more than it should when there's grammatically incorrect copy in advertising. So Jenna, you brought this to our attention and it led to some fun Slack chatter on the Rival account this week. What are your thoughts on this very important story of the week?
This is going for the dunk and missing on a dunk. This was right. You're right. It was right there. It could have been celebrate her. It was right there.
Celebrate she.
Yeah. Or this is how you know the other. Like I feel like the designer was the lead on like whatever team I came up with this. Where the designer was like, I needed to be centered like above like the she. And so they chose for it to be like aesthetically centered rather than like a copywriter being like, excuse me.
It's not even aesthetically centered unless you count the apostrophe as a letter. But I think my bigger thing and what always blows my mind is like, there's so many rounds of revisions, so many rounds of reviews. And like this, like who really cares about this? But, you know, you think of things like that, Kylie Jenner or whatever it was, the PepsiCo thing that like really, that was bad. And there's a lot of like really bad, not just grammatically incorrect advertising that gets out there. Marcus, how does this happen? Like there's so many people that this goes through. How does something like this actually get through?
You know, we can't see behind the scenes. There's some very real possibilities for logic behind this. Like maybe famous Grammys performer Her is incredibly litigious, and maybe she successfully won some lawsuits against, other candy bar makers. There's a chance. Listen, they might be so galaxy brained. Her feels too specific. She, the overarching concept of she, might be really what they want to address. It's ridiculous. I will say though, like these things work. Like it is like honestly, packaging, like playing with packaging and just like this in particular is not the most creative. But like we've seen over and over again, especially like Budweiser, they do it every year. It always works. Honestly, like more and more brands should be doing this, but yeah, maybe giving a little more thought into how they actually design it.
And I think there's a point here, which is yes, it could be better. but it could be far worse as well. Like, I think, when you think about activation, especially if we go back to some of the really bad ones during like International Women's Day or something, like, I think we have to applaud the idea that the only stumble here is,
Right.
it could have been
Progress.
slightly better grammatically. And I think that's progress. I think to the early point as well, I do think there's an assumption here that, revisions and reviews make a product better. And I think this is a great example of why you should invite normal people to any review after about the 5th or 6th, people who don't work in advertising, and just explain it to them. Because I guarantee someone who just peeked in the window would be like, oh, you could do her instead of she. And they go, there we go. But I think at a certain point, there's just a spiral away from kind of how people speak or how people do things. And I think here it landed with just a slight diversion from what would have been much better. But, to the Kylie Jenner point, a lot of the time it goes much further from where culture and society will bear.
Yeah.
Are you saying that we have to give these people credit because they didn't make the chocolate pink and charge 30% more for it? Where it's like, as long as they didn't do that, like they get credit for it. Like that's
a little bit. I feel like
that's a low bar.
I feel
not
like
bad. Not bad is the new bar.
70% of a chocolate bar and made it pink. That would be the real social commentary.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Wow. It's a great idea. All right, 10 points to everybody. Actually, 11 to Poe because that was a good follow-up right there. Okay, last story. We're going to talk pickleball because you must have been involved in these conversations, Marcus. So for those who don't know, Gary, your boss, our old boss, has been very vocal with talking about how pickleball is really on the up and up. And I really like his perspective of like, you know what, at some point, baseball was the crazy thing that people thought was dumb. Not to say pickleball is dumb. I don't want to pickleball fans out there. However, I'm just curious to kind of get the inside track. I mean, he's been talking about it for a while. He bought a team, I believe.
Yeah.
And Ryan Harwood is now the general manager.
Yeah, the general manager,
team, as well as running Pure Wow. So give us the inside scoop on the expanding world of pickleball overall, and Gary and Vayner, and maybe even your stake in it.
I mean, here's what I would say. I haven't been as intimately involved in like the specifics of it, but overall, so Gary also was involved with the Big Three. I don't know if y'all are familiar with that. It's the 3-on-3 league that Ice Cube launched like 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So he's actually now an owner of one of the teams, the Triplets, there too. I think what you're seeing across the board is like, even if you don't become baseball, right? All of these niche sports are picking up a ton of steam. Like I have a friend who's super into disc golf. And he does it on his own. He also has like a media company that films it. And like the top disc golf players get paid. Frolf, yeah, exactly. Frolf. Okay. Where like really part of your score is like how many joints you can roll like while you're actually playing the game. But it's like the top disc golf players make over $1 million a year. It's insanity. And what's happened is
where's the
essentially
revenue come from? Is it broadcast on TV?
A lot of sponsorships. So like
I don't
essentially
even think
like
well, actually no, CrossFit athletes do make more than that, but not that much more.
It's crazy. And so it's essentially just like, as now you've seen like the broader world go like heavier niche, like there's just a lot of people that are interested in it. There's all these different pockets of people that are interested in it. And I think as long as people are doing it, like that's the thing, like disc golf from like an actual participation perspective is going up. Pickleball, the same thing. Like you can talk to like someone who's like 75 years old, they're doing pickleball. You can talk to someone who's 25 years old. Like I had some friends, like we get together once a year, like we played pickleball for the first time like a year ago and everyone loved it. Like it's one of those things that like as more and more people do it, you're going to be more willing to watch it because you understand it. And there's a space for more leagues like that.
It is interesting. It's like, the things that we take for granted as like right or normal mainstream weren't at one point. And at some point they're going to get replaced. Certainly baseball is really struggling with viewership these days and trying to make a lot of changes to attract new, younger, just more viewers in general. Do you think we're going to have like retired tier 1 tennis players going to play pickleball, kind of like we have like the European soccer players that come to the US eventually? But I mean, I'm half joking, but also that's a huge part of how they're trying to build soccer in the US is to bring the big name stars once, they can't play in the top tier leagues anymore.
It's super in play. I mean, like, and I think like, it's one of those things where like, you kind of go from both ends. There's like the actual groundswell of like people doing it. And then you have like the personality side of like F1 basically has really built the personality side because like no one's going to have experience actually driving one of those cars. Right. But they've like so over indexed on like actually getting people who like people care about, getting them to watch it. And so, like the cheat code that MLS has used forever, and I'm sure pickleball will use in the future is like, let's bring in people that people know. By the way, whether or not like pickleball is an interesting one in that like, it's so new. I could see people coming over from other sports who are athletic, who basically can like learn it. It's early enough that like, it's in play for that as well. So I think that will always be a move.
So you're saying pickleball needs Bo Jackson, basically? It needs a Bo Jackson
Listen,
of pickleball.
Get him in there. Tim Tebow, he can definitely do it.
Tebow would do it. I think the funny thing
Tebow
about it, I would say, on the talent side, it's definitely got like a high ceiling. I think for things that are like top tier sports, you got to go. There has to be a tribalism, and that's just the one thing I don't know if pickleball has yet. Like when pickleball
not
has
yet.
ultras,
Yet's the key word, right?
Yeah, but when it has like ultras, when it has soccer hooligan level fans who are kind of touring around supporting pickleball players, that's when you know it's made it.
I don't know. I mean, like roller derby has that, but roller derby has not yet like made it like in the in the mainstream. I know this because my brother-in-law is one of those people that follows around a roller derby team from Berlin to the United States. But I don't know. Like I think this is cool just because I really appreciate that there's a proliferation of sports content where it's like sports of any variety is like a safe. I don't want to watch the news because it's fucking terrifying. I don't want to like engage with like professionally, whatever. I just want to watch or have something on that's like, okay, like this is like cool and interesting. And like, I can, you can pick up sports and like just choose to root for somebody, like just for the course of a game, even if you aren't like on like the big, like tribal, like part of this yet. Like, it's fun, right? Like to just tune into something halfway and be like, all right, I, for completely arbitrary reasons, am going to support red team versus blue team because screw the blue team or something, That's fun.
Well,
So
and then you follow 3 of the blue team members on TikTok or on Instagram, and all of a sudden you start to like them because they're interesting personalities. It's so much easier. Like you don't have to have like a TV show or like some sort of like formal media to like actually get people invested in your players or your league. Like it's so easy to build up like a cult thing. You don't have to become MLB. There's actually like a space that exists that like really had not existed before.
What kind of money are we talking for like pickleball sponsorship?
I actually don't know. I have no concept of it.
I mean, we're trying to grow in the U.S. and it sounds like there might be some underpriced attention here. So
if you could
need
get
to find
like
Kim Kardashian of pickleball,
you could get Punchy, you could get pickleball. Yeah.
No, we need Dulwich Hamlet. I feel like Dubose and I are like
the Dulwich Hamlet of pickleball, right?
Yeah,
the sixth
Marcus,
division of American pickleball.
I need you to do me a favor. Remind Gary. He and I had a tennis game in probably 2011. We had best of 3. I won 1, he won 1, and then the third game went to like 17 ties or something, and we had to leave to go to a meeting, and we still have not resolved it. So you tell him that I am challenging him publicly on Punchy to finishing that on the pickleball court. Let me know.
Would you? Yeah, I was gonna say you're transitioning over to pickleball. That could be it.
I think
that could
so.
Be the big stunt.
Yeah.
I'll relay it,
and that could be the announcement of our pickleball sponsorship.
Yes,
as rival.
Exactly.
All right, we are overtime. That's all we got for today. Marcus, you won. You have 2 minutes to share a rant or rave. And do you want to go back to the conversation we were having before we press record about fruits and vegetables that are over and underrated?
Ooh, I've got a couple actually. Yeah, I mean, I'll say this. Here's actually the real one I want to talk about, and it's something I've been talking with a group of people at Vayner about. Door holding etiquette. It's a real important thing to me right now. Here's the thing. If I'm like a good 15 seconds behind you, don't hold the door open for me because I don't want to do the fake jog and run up. You're putting me out. You think that you're being all sorts of helpful and polite. So you're really not.
What's the window? 3 seconds? I think it should probably be like a space, right? Is it 10 yards?
I think it's like 1 to 2 seconds not breaking stride. Because and here's the thing, and then there's the other variable, which is like, is it a swipe card situation? I think like if it's a swipe card situation, you got the door open, I'm willing to give you an extra like 4 or 5 seconds. But if it's just like a normal door, just push it open, leave it open. If I want to run and grab it, I can do that. But I also have the option to maintain my stride and walk through. It's become a real issue. It's even worse when it's on stairs because then all of a sudden I'm jogging and I'm basically like full on like exercising to get up to this door. I just think there just needs to be like a general agreement across all of us that like it's okay, it's not rude. You know what I mean? Like people don't have to like just sit there for you. So that's the biggest thing. I'll also say like just in terms of fruits, like I think that pineapple incredibly underrated. As a fruit, I think it's just not talked enough about. I would say a blueberry raspberry combo is maybe like the strongest actual combination of fruits.
Double berry, yeah.
But that's sort of where
All right.
where that lands.
I am going to give you 100 points. Nobody has ever gotten 100 points in the whole 3-episode history of Punchy if you can smoothly and very immediately segue your door holding conversation into a marketing recommendation or rant or rave for people.
A
3,
marketing recommendation or rant or
2,
rave. So
1.
So what I would say is that Facebook is trying to hold the door open for people. They're introducing basic ads because they're thinking that we're all going to run towards this product that no one actually wants. When really they should just close the door on this concept of like we're going to have total targeting, incremental targeting like we had in 2012, and just allow us to live our life within the basic Facebook targeting world and get really good at that. So I would just prefer if Facebook would stop.
They're the
trying
awkward
to hold the door
door holder.
For marketing.
We're all doing the half jog to catch up. All right,
Yeah,
Jenna,
exactly.
Dubose, can I get a thumbs up, thumbs down on whether Marcus gets 100 points for that?
Thumbs up. An extra 50 points, honestly. I feel 150 points. That was really good.
150 points. Why not?
Yeah.
I'll donate all of my points.
Why not 1,000?
All right, Marcus, you are officially in the Punchy Hall of Fame. You have, I'm going to have to add this up later, something like 260 or 70 points. Congratulations.
Snitch.
You're our...
Thanks for having me.
Is there a snitch in pickleball? Or no? No, that's
there could be
Quidditch,
actually though.
Right? People play Quidditch though too. That's a real.
Oh
thing.
yeah, 100%.
Not just over
100%.
here. Yeah.
It's like a big college thing.
Yeah.
Uni.
There's probably some joints involved in that too.
Yeah,
all right. On that note, that's all we got for today. Poe, Marcus, Beauregard. So good of you to join us. As always, great to catch up. Great to get your perspectives on all things fruit and door etiquette. And to everyone listening, thanks for joining us. We'll see you next week. Goodbye.
Great talking to you. Bye.
Punchy is a production of Rival. We are a growth consultancy that builds challenger brands, strategies, and capabilities to disrupt categories. If you want to learn more about us, check out wearerival.com. If you want to connect with Jenna, Dubose, or myself, email us at media@wearerival.com or find us on LinkedIn. If you enjoyed today's show, please subscribe, share with anyone you think might enjoy it, and leave us a review. Thanks so much for listening, and see you next week.